Hi friends, I'm Maria Meliora. Welcome to my channel. On this very fine night, we're gathering together to discuss a rather serious issue. I have probably perused through my 200 plus bottle collection no less than 3 times in order to narrow down to 10. But I think I got you an absolutely stunning selection of the most addictive perfumes in my collection. The most addictive scents is a rather dangerous category to go into because I see them as quintessentially different from the sexiest, from favorite, from trigger happy, like when you just spray. It's a very specific type of category of perfumes, at least like in my book, so you understand like the selection that I show you later of my top 10, that there might be not necessarily gourmand, or they might be not the easiest even to wear, but once you get into the groove of that olfactory profile, it's impossible to stop. It's just like you keep coming for more. Whether you apply one spray or a dozen, it's just these perfumes kind of like drag you. They just pull you into some kind of like warm or cold or hot black hole of their own universe. And the number one that I'm going to start with today is the only one here that I have still in decant because I can't quite pull the trigger and buy a full-size bottle. This is Sylvain de la Courte, the most addictive vanille fragrance in my collection to date, and I don't take the word the most lightly in this case. It's been a very long time coming, this confession that I'm making here, because Sylvain de la Courte is a niche perfume house. You can still buy it in Neiman Marcus and places like that, and let me double check. The last time I checked, it's actually not crazy priced. You know, like these days we have to divide perfumes into affordable, designer, niche kind of prices, hyperluxe, which are like boutique and hyperluxe boutique lines, like boutique line of Guerlain or things like that. And Tom Ford goes into that hyperluxe, and just stupid, crazy expensive. So considering that a lot of new niche houses for some reason are coming in from the stupid expensive point of view, the $70 for 30 ml is not like, I mean, it's still a lot, but it's not the craziest price considering the contemporary perfume market. So what is Valkyrie about? There's something very gentle and a little bit animalic about this vanilla. For me, it's very hard to love vanilla that goes animalic. I don't know why. It's just the combination of rich vanilla with spices and with animalic notes often makes a fragrance a bit much, a bit smothering, at least like to my taste. And the way that the Valkyrie combines all these facets is mesmerizing. I keep trying to find something even remotely similar, and I've sampled, I mean, you know, there are probably 1,000, if not less, vanilla-centric fragrances now, probably thousands, right, like several off. But still, they're either too predictable, or they're too fruity, or they're too kind of vanillin, you know, like a cheap type of vanilla. It's just very rare that I find a vanilla-centric fragrance that is just so mesmerizing and so hypnotically soothing that I just, it's impossible to stop sniffing it. It's impossible. The good points going for it: expensive but not crazy price. Definitely uniqueness factor if you're like as stupid of a snob as me. I do like my fragrances to be, you know, like not like the kind of names nobody can pronounce, me included. I don't know why. Historic houses, unpronounceable niche houses, something that is like super elaborate and conceptual, sign me in. So Sylvain de la Courte definitely has that factor. It has a whole line of different vanilla fragrances. I only got this decant from a perfume blogger, a friend of mine, just as a generous gift. This is like about 10 ml. Let's see. I used up about half of it, and you don't need a lot to last you a long time. So this is like, to me, 2 sprays is at max 3. It's all I need. It's, oh, I feel like this whole video is gonna be like this. This is just so addictive. And I'm kind of happy I started with this, because this one has a little bit of sensuality, a little bit of kind of soothing, cozy factor, and yet is bright enough to be noticeable by others. I have to move on. Each of these will be hard to move on from. Super addictive, kind of high on my wish list right now. All right, I'm just gonna like shift the gears a little bit. A 15 ml, but beautifully, this is the best travel packaging I've seen so far. Histoire de Perfumes Mata Hari, 1876. Completely different story though, but just as hypnotic as the previous one, if not more. This is poisonous. The general description of this is a bitter green powdery fragrance. It has spices, but not in the sense that we are expecting from gourmands. These spices remind you more of kind of like potion making in many ways. The herbs here with spices just give you this almost absinthe-like sweet bitterness, and a little bit more sweetness comes from the deep, rich, powdery notes that are kind of wrapping it all up. Mata Hari doesn't appeal to the lowest common denominator. It's unmistakably moody. If I had to bring like some distant cousins of it, think of L'Heure Bleue by Guerlain, think of basically maybe Salvador Dali, Dali Mix Black, anything that makes you think of very rich alcohol, kind of cocktail like herbal balsamic kind of alcohol notes. Like, as I mentioned, like absinthe maybe a little bit, with poisonous powder. It's such a poisonous potion type of perfume. I love it. It has to fit a certain mood, but once I get into wearing it, it's almost impossible. It's like you're like in this opium cloud that you can't get away from it. It's everything. It becomes you, you become it. Moving on, like today is gonna be hard, but we have to. By the way, I'm not showing them in any particular order. They're all so different to me that, you know, it's mostly like a festival. Like, it's not like one of them is higher up than the other one. A newer obsession of mine, some of you already know the story of me buying all kinds of Marquis de Sade perfumes. Apparently, it's a theme of 2020 for me. This is Histoire de Perfumes Marquis de Sade 1740. I heard from a lot of people that this is difficult to wear. I don't get it. I just recently came back from a beautiful, very long, like very hard in preparation trip to Bahamas, and we did like some fun perfume tasting, like blind tasting, and people who don't almost wear perfumes at all, who know nothing about niche, who, you know, like they don't have any like skin in the game. One of them said like, this is it. This is what I want. I can't find anything like that on the market. This is so good. So I don't think that the niche tag necessarily means that it's difficult to wear, but, you know, take it or leave it. I love it. Marquis de Sade 1740 for me is a very gourmand, smoky, musky leather. It has both some of that kind of sourness of leather, like as it can get, like slightly sour, but the smoke and rich edible type of spices like cardamom, cinnamon, and things like that, black pepper, you name it, all of them kind of dig it out of going too BO, like too sour musk. I don't like sour musks, I can't stand them, so I would tell you if it was like too sour of a musk, too grabby, like the kind of musks that Tiziana Terenzi and DUULET has a gun do. None of that to me. It's just such a juxtaposition of somewhat sweaty leather with gourmand spicy notes. It's so addictive. As soon as I bought it, I was hooked. I couldn't stop wearing it. You can see this is a lot. This is a lot of wear, considering that I like just recently got it, and I have a vast collection. I have hundreds upon hundreds of decants that I have to go through to do reviews for you. So just so you know, Marquis de Sade is an option for you too. The next one is also like this, what put Memo Paris on the map for me. This is Quartier Latin, my first full bottle purchase from them. I got it secondhand from another friend, perfume reviewer of mine. I think she got it like as a PR sample or something like that. Anyway, like we did like a very happy exchange. Here, we keep the spices. We round it up with vanilla, somewhat similar to the kind of both edible but not literal vanilla that I feel in Valkyrie by Sylvain Delacour. But it's just, we just put it all richly on the very rich, warm suede. I associate this with New Year. This is when I got it. It was a very memorable visit to Russia several years ago, and to me this is just like this smell of winter cheer, but kind of like European style, if you wish, because I'm not gonna show you here, but I'll show you like in another video, like the kind of the American culture, like where I live, has its own stamp, like it put its own stamps on my olfactory life that I would love to explore with you guys, but in another video. Here though, this is the smell of warmth when it's like minus 20 degrees Celsius outside. Oh, so good. I just really don't want to go into any kind of notes for this one. Honestly, it's just such a beautiful blend, such a cohesive mixture of soft kitchen edible type of spices with warm, kind of like tonka bean vanilla type of warm sweet-ish presence without making it edible gourmand at all. This is appetizing, this is not edible. And the suede here, oh, this is the best suede fragrance in my collection. This toppled Down Blonde by Serge Lutens, which for many people is like the iconic white suede type of fragrance. This is probably, yeah, I'll make another remark because I already made a whole review of the Memo Paris brand. If you're curious, you can see it on my channel. I'm just gonna say that this is, out of all of the fragrances I tried from them, this was the first, and this remains the one that I dare say might be worth the full price. Still haven't met anything in remotely like that. Very long lasting, very multi-dimensional, very deep, just addictive, very addictive stuff. Okay, when we're talking about, since I mentioned Serge Lutens, let me show you the most addictive scent that I have from Serge Lutens to date. Vitriol DUULET. This is basically a, how does it translate, like vile carnation, something along those lines, or Cruel Carnation. The carnation as a note, as an accord, very regrettably so, is not very popular right now. It had a huge, it had its heyday in the 80s, and I'm patiently waiting when it comes back because I love carnation. Go figure. I don't like vintage profile in perfumes necessarily. I mean, I can appreciate it, but it's not like something, you know, that I go to by default. Actually, soft spices is where, like, it's where my heart is. That's where my nude category of fragrances is. So here we get somewhat sharp, very prickly, almost piercing kind of opening that a lot of people are makes a lot of people kind of pull back a little bit from this perfume, but this spicy, ethereal, yet slightly animalic take on carnation, it's so demure. It's just like, it's like one of those women who is so proper, so reserved, so filtered, but you just know, she's got like skeletons in her closet. You know she's a femme fatale, even though she plays it kind of like very proper and very safe in public. This is a femme fatale to me. I know, like I myself wouldn't associate like a carnation-centric fragrance with femme fatale, but this is it. And it also changes a lot in time. This is what I really love about this fragrance. It's fun and interesting to wear because you kind of like every time like a half an hour passes, you catch a slightly different version of it, a slightly different story from your skin. Since we're on the topic of sexy, seductive fragrances, I said it before, I'll say it again. I could give you like easily 10 beautiful, rich, niche fragrances, but if it really comes down to it, the sexiest fragrance in my collection is no other than Narciso Rodriguez for her Eau de Parfum. I have a whole collection of Narciso Rodriguez fragrances, and probably so do you. Please let me know if you are like that. If you also collect all the flavors of their beautiful, seductive, animalic musks. I think probably, I dare say, I prefer the musks of this kind of like sensual, animalic, sweet musk story of Narciso Rodriguez over Kilian, over Tom Ford, definitely over Tiziana Terenzi and like other sour musk stories. It's just, and it was first. Let's just acknowledge the fact that this was first. Luckily, very much available for a variety of prices and variety of formulations. I could show you like easily, I think I have like 6 of them, and it takes very cognitive resistance of me not to buy more. It's just so well proportioned. It lands well. It almost everybody finds it very sensual, very kind of thought-provoking if you wish. And you can find your own flavor. I personally probably still love the most the original Eau de Parfum. Some people prefer Eau de Toilette, some people prefer the white cube, which is more gardenia, black cube that is a little bit more sharper, brighter. The red cube, I think Narciso Rouge it's called, which is more makeup-y. So there are like all kinds of facets of Narciso Rodriguez musks, but they all share a lot of the same DNA, minus the very recent releases that I fail to understand what those are for. But maybe that's another topic for another day. The most sexy, a very addictive fragrance. Once I get into using it, very, very hard to stop because it just makes you it makes you move differently. It like evokes something in me that I forgot I had, to be honest. Okay, let's take it down a notch a little bit. The most addictive, angelic perfume. something that makes me feel like I'm an elf, like I'm ethereal, like that I'm floating on the air. It's just, yeah, it's very angelic. This is Pure Poison by Dior. A recent addition to my collection, and already a fast favorite. Obviously, I knew what it smelled like, and I reserved buying a bottle for the longest time, partially because I had something that is somewhat similar but much deeper, richer, louder, which is Quartier Latin. I also had a lot of nude fragrances. I thought I just don't need another soft, powdery, kind of orchid floral. I don't need that, but I do. As soon as I exchanged it with a friendly subscriber for another bottle that she got from my collection, the game was on. Ever since I got it, I just keep coming to it. I keep sniffing it. It's just puts me in such fluffy mood. I think I dare say this is my new favorite soft, powdery, kind of new type of fragrance. I love it. I love it. And again, once I get into the mood of feeling like that, of having this souffle cloud around me, it's so hard to switch to anything else. The next one is going to be L'Artisan Parfumeur Lamprey Extreme. Specifically, extreme version, mind you. I actually haven't tried the Le Dambre, the original one, but the extreme is... wow. This is... Even before I recorded my collection of Amber fragrances, I'll give you a spoiler. This is the best amber in my collection. I don't know, okay, maybe not objectively the best, but this is the one that when I think of the roundest, the smoothest amber that I can think of in my collection, this is it. I should have probably started from this because this was a first super addictive niche fragrance that I got in my collection. I bought it blindly, just reading the notes. I was kind of curious and wasn't like on a decent discount. I wouldn't say it was super cheap. Back then, what did I know about online discount stores? But I got it nevertheless. And there's something here that is remotely similar, if you need a point of reference, to Donna Taboo, but that one is both more complex and more flat at the same time. Donna Taboo is even heavier on kind of like the spice market and like all these animalic, civetta, elemi, you name it kind of notes. I find that Lamprey Extreme by L'Artisan Parfumeur does a much more delicate, elegant job with wrapping, blending, just kind of like polishing the resinous, animalic, vanilla-ish amber type of accord. All of these notes, all of these facets together. The incense and what it really smells like differs dramatically between different type of churches. Don't trust you, miss? Go check that out. The Catholic cathedral type of incense and the kind of like incenses that they burn there is very different in proportion, even though I love it too. It's very different in the way that it presents itself and the way it smells than the Orthodox Church smell. So when we're talking about the Christian Orthodox churches, they use a lot of myrrh, they use a lot of like heavier, sweeter type of ingredients, and they also burn a ton of candles. So when you enter, most of the time, like a smaller, like a local little church, it just always have this very kind of heavy but both kind of like soothing, hypnotic smell of burning candles, frankincense, myrrh, incense, and all that good stuff. So I was trying to achieve that, kind of come to as close as possible to that impression of standing there and inhaling the candle smell. Not any kind of perfume candles that we buy in the stores, that won't do. That particular impression, and I found it in Lamdanon 18. This is the most realistic kind of church candle smell that I've ever found. And it's sweet, seductive. It's kind of like, I guess probably along the same lines with like amber, vanilla type of fragrances. It's not an obvious gourmand by any means. It's not in any way super spicy or this or this or that. Like if you're looking for something sweet and spicy, I would go for Marquis de Sade, probably more likely. This is that heavy, dripping type of wax candle scent. And that what makes me think, every once in a while I remember those nights right after Christmas when it was like very common for people to leave the candles burning all night and like keep talking through the New Year's night, you know, like sharing stories, drinking, going for night walks, you know, fireworks and all that good stuff. And as a kid, sometimes like my parents would have friends over, basically a bunch of adults and kids, all like a huge sleepover for the New Year's night. And when I would get so exhausted as a child and like fall asleep, just collapse on this, like a living room sofa near the table full of half-eaten dishes with dozens of candles everywhere, the Christmas tree, the sound of fireworks all the way through the night around 4 a.m. and just falling asleep to the smell of candles and waking up to the smell of candles. It got so addictive that I couldn't quite fall asleep for a while without using Labdanon 18 by Le Labo. It was that bad. Like I just like, this is it. This is the smell of me falling asleep, and I'm not going to do so unless I get a whiff of this. And the last fragrance that I find to be very addictive is the cheapest of them all. It's the most affordable out of all of the ones I showed you before. This is Jennifer Aniston. I know that a lot of people online criticize it for being like flat or this, but then they managed to compare this that costs like $10 for, I don't know, a bucket, with some extraordinary expensive jasmine or white flower centric scent from a niche house that costs $300. To me, it's not quite a fair comparison. To be honest, I do prefer these sweet white flowers minus the tuberose. I can't quite tolerate the tuberose, so luckily for me it's not very heavy on tuberose. It's mostly jasmine, a little bit of maybe orange blossom, honeysuckle, things like that. It's such a soothing, calming, sweet white floral scent. To me, it has a little bit of a hard candy flavor at the same time. Not the biggest fan of that, to be honest, but here I love it. So this became another super addictive nighttime smell when I had a lot of work to do, and sometimes I would have late nights and I just probably sounds pathetic, but I felt bad for myself, you know? I just like, why do I have to work all the way through the night? It's not fair. So I needed to be both soothed, comforted. I needed to feel loved and comforted, and yet I needed to stay awake. So this was basically like my late night dessert when I still needed to do something. And oddly enough, it also reminded me of my grandma. I don't remember her wearing sweet jasmine scents, but go figure. Has this association that personally for me is super soothing, also super comforting association as well. So here is my top 10 most addictive scents. Some of them are addictive for a reason that they're super soothing. Some of them are rather confrontational and domineering. Some of them are to be shared with others. Some of them are to be kept for myself. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to know which scents you find the most addictive in your collection. What kind of scents, once you get into them, are so hypnotic, intoxicating, mesmerizing, that it's just hard to switch to something else. Please let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Please share it with other perfume lovers like me and you. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video.